Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had a fantastic Tuesday and a great week so far. Today we're going to be giving our daily cryptocurrency market update, where we not only tackle the realms of cryptocurrency, but we look at the traditional financial world and really give a general synopsis of markets as a whole. And that's what we're going to do in this video. I've got some very interesting data to share with you from Glassnode. A lot of on-chain data we're going to go over in this video for Bitcoin, because I believe in every single time we have one of these sell-offs, I always come on here and say the same thing, and that is to hodl, hang on, these are shakeouts, and we will see a recovery from this. We've made sure to reiterate the fact that we are not in a bear market in every single video that we've made for a reason. There has not been any confirmation that we are going to go into a bear market, and it's certainly not my opinion that we are going to either. You know, we've spoken a lot about how cycles are looking like they're going to lengthen. We're going to have more of a prolonged bull market. That bull market and bear market may take different approach to what we've previously seen with the Bitcoin 4-year cycle theory, where we may see shorter bears, longer bulls, or the whole theory in a kind of micro play, if you will. So we're going to get into all that in this video. The market's certainly looking a little bit more chirpy today. We are going to be going over our traditional financial indicators, we're going to call them, but they're obviously the traditional financial stocks like the FTSE, oil. The S&P hasn't opened yet, and the dollar. We're seeing a huge uptick on the FTSE, and oil is also seeing some strength as well. And we did say whenever you get overextended, this was a nasty sell-off, certainly on the daily, that oil had experienced. We have said when you get overextended from these EMAs to both the upside and the down, you do tend to re-meet them and kind of close that gap. And that's what you're seeing for oil. This is a good indication. We saw a lot of fear. Certainly this sell-off here, we had it in the FTSE, we had it across markets as a whole, and of course crypto, which is a lot more volatile and moved in a way higher beta, was really due to the new variant scares. Now that does seem to, there's a lot of reports saying that potentially it's not as a big a threat as was initially first reported. So there's a lot going on that scale. We've also tackled inflation. Jerome Powell saying he's going to start tapering off bond buybacks, how this is going to affect the markets. It will undoubtedly have an effect, but they're in a really tight situation where they can't really act too fast. You know, they can't stop inflation. Inflation is here to stay. Ask your grandparents what they bought their house for. You know, all they can do is maybe mitigate it, but it's somewhat a futile affair, if you will. So Bitcoin, one thing that's really interesting is if you look at this sort of support line that we have here, it's a kind of macro support line. It also coincides with what was potentially a previous resistance until we flipped it as support. You can see that the most recent sell-off for Bitcoin, and we're going to get into that and what really drove that, because some very interesting data from Glassnode that really shows this was the third largest on-chain capitulation in history, the third largest sell-off, if you will, and we're going to look at who really took the losses here. It wasn't hodlers, it was short-term buyers that got panicked. And what you see is you see Bitcoin moving from a liquid state to an illiquid state. So essentially you see Bitcoin going from short-term buyers to hodlers. You see this every dip that happens. The whales step in and they buy up because they know where this is going. I also agree with them with where I think this is going. I think crypto has a long life that we are just starting, and I don't want people to panic while we make these daily videos. So it's very interesting how we bounced off here. I do think you are going to recover. This was largely driven by liquidations. And of course, with the kind of overall market conditions, you know, it didn't take a lot of volume to actually push us down here. Take a look at Ethereum. Ethereum's recovered very, very nicely. This is, of course, because of the gas fees, meaning nobody can sell their Ethereum. That is a joke, of course. But Ethereum's basically where it has been. It's not really done a lot. So it's kind of consolidating, in my opinion, ready to move to the upside with Bitcoin and the whole market. Cardano, it's been a bloodbath. We made a video yesterday where we said, look, we're likely not going to see a 2017 to 2013 end to the year for crypto as a whole. Obviously, Cardano is a part of that. So, you know, we're not really expecting a parabolic. We're expecting an uptick because there's always this kind of Christmas rush, if you will. But we're not expecting to get some of the price predictions that we had in play. And that's just how it goes. Things don't always go according to plan, but I'm still as bullish on ADA as I've ever been. In fact, I've never been so bullish with what's on the horizon. I was testing out the Sunday swap testnet yesterday. Things are looking good despite everything that's going on. And this is what I want to move on to with Glassnode. Assessing the Bitcoin sell-off. This was a really interesting thread that I want to kind of go over with you. It makes a lot of sense. Let me just make my face a little bit smaller. so that you guys can see this properly. Bitcoin holders realized the third largest on-chain capitulation in history over the weekend, with over $2.18 billion in realized losses. This compares to 1.38 in March 2020, 2.65 in May, and 3.45 billion in June. So this was the third largest, essentially, sell-off that we've seen. You can see this, you can see what this has done to the price. But what typically follows these massive sell-offs is some form of recovery. After we have these kind of flush out, if you will, of the leverage in the system, we tend to kind of see that recovery. And this is really due to the floor that is kind of put in place by whales buying up Bitcoin and hodling it. You can see here on this chart, Bitcoin is being sold to hodlers. Illiquid supply plateaued briefly before buyers stepped back into the market yesterday. And you can see the red line here is the illiquid supply. That continues to go up. Meanwhile, the price goes down. So people are hodling Bitcoin. And that's the approach I think you need to take with crypto. We are essentially in for the ride, if you will. Crypto has a journey that it's on where it's going to see adoption, and we're very early within that. So I hope this is all making sense, putting some of your minds at ease. We always try and do that. Certainly it's not nice. As somebody who's been through this time and time again, it does get a lot easier. But it's certainly not nice when we get that initial sell-off and that kind of fear grips the market. And there's always a worry that, okay, we're going to go lower. Typically what happens is we don't. People buy that up, and then we see continuation. That's certainly what we're expecting. So the next thread within this question is, which cohort of Bitcoin hodlers were realizing these losses? If we look to long-term holder supplies, we can actually see their total holdings are unchanged over the past week. So they haven't actually, sold any Bitcoin during this time period and realized those losses. This makes it more probable that it was recent buy. So it's people that panic. It's new people to the market. Hodlers are veterans. They hold their Bitcoin. And it actually hasn't changed during this dip. If anything, you see an uptick, a slight uptick. So that kind of points to new buyers. Here's another part of the thread. The short-term holders SOPR metric, on the other hand, shows very significant losses were realized by this cohort. So the short-term holders, and you can see that over here, ladies and gentlemen. Spending by STHs was the least profitable it has been since the 29k lows set back in July. Very interestingly and very revealing, because we see this time and time again, and this is another chart that we have for you. However, Bitcoin exchange flows only hit 2k and 3.2k. Bitcoin, whilst meaningful, it is small in comparison with 10k in May. With almost 25% of future contracts closed, we can determine that a leverage flush out in the most likely sell-off side driver. So a leverage flush out's most likely what happened. Here you can see the Bitcoin futures expired, and you can see, this had a huge impact on it, with over $5.4 billion in open interest closed yesterday. So it's all very correlated. It's a whale game, ladies and gentlemen. Remember what you're investing in and how this may shape the world and be the new thing, a kindred to, the internet and some of the products that came out of that, and hang in there. I don't think, in fact, I'm pretty certain that we're not in a bear market. Certainly yet, I don't think we are going to enter one. We haven't put even in a lower low within this trend that we broke from this falling wedge, let alone the one that we're currently in. It's interesting, this support line, how we actually held it. And this has played, this sort of trend line has been significant on a number of occasions, both as support and then resistance, flip back to support, ready for continuation. So that's what I'm expecting. Like I say, Ethereum seems to be doing well. Cardano's getting there, and we will get there for ADA when we know what's around the corner. Your traditional financial markets are actually looking quite healthy. Certainly we're seeing an uptick in the FTSE. Let's hope we go on to put a new high in here, because this will kind of give us a good direction of the overall markets. We're even seeing an uptick in oil, which is typically an anti-fear against the dollar. And the dollar's somewhat stalling, if you will, failing to kind of see continuation. But doing quite well. This is probably a macro continuation pattern that we have here for the dollar. Certainly that's what we're expecting. I think the dollar's going to get strong and other currencies are going to get weak, and this is what's going to drive it. So that is really all I have for you. This was a short and sweet update. We're seeing a bit of an uptick in markets. Doesn't mean that, we're done. What we could likely see, and we have said this on a number of occasions, is something like this. After these kind of serious sell-offs, you get an area of capitulation. Or consolidation, I should say, sorry, not capitulation. So that's what we could be looking at. More consolidation, setting up maybe like another falling wedge before we get that continuation. And that's exactly, I keep saying it because it's exactly what I believe is happening. We are going to see continuation. This 4-year cycle is playing out differently to the last 4-year cycle, and that's okay. And when something new presents itself, you need to deal with it accordingly. We were expecting kind of parabolic end to the year. It looks like that's not the case. You know, there's nobody, you know, this is markets, guys. Things don't always go to plan, and it's what you do when things don't go to plan that will really define you as an investor. People that are just panicking right now and not knowing what to do, you're not going to do very well. You need to saddle yourself down, look at other data points like the fact that cycles are definitely lengthening, and that it's very likely that we are going to go into next year and continue in this bull run. Crypto is so early in terms of adoption, guys, that you are lucky enough to be a part of what comes next. So that is really all I have for you in this video. I hope you guys have found this useful and entertaining. I'm off to the gym to get some gains today, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next YouTube video. Remember, we do have the stake pool, the Cardano stake pool. ALLIN is the name. We minted another block today. That's every epoch now we seem to be minting. So very happy about that. I'm going to love and leave you guys. Have a fantastic Tuesday, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video. Thank you very much for watching.